Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got a third-party transforming figure review for you. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Fans Toys FT-52 Aussie. So this is their take on a masterpiece scaled G1 Minibot Outback. And I think from a look standpoint at the very least, this guy's got it. He looks good. But let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging first. So it is FT-52 Aussie. There you've got that artwork in both of his modes. Fan Toys 2022. Aussie over here on the back. You have Aussie. And I will just let that sit there. If you want to pause and read that, feel free to do so. It's a very detailed background, so worth reading. And coming on down here, you've got some product shots, and you can see him there with their version of Brawn and the Megatron fusion cannon that Aussie comes with. And you've got that information down here, and you've got a little teeny tiny QR code if you want to scan that. Over here, you've got that information again. Up top, you have this information, and there's another QR code for you, video instruction. And down here, you have the same information. So that is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead, get that box out of the way, and take a look at everything that came inside the packaging. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came with Aussie, and we'll start right here in the middle with his bio card. So this is a nice little bio card. It's a sturdy feeling plastic, got a nice gloss on it, got some artwork on the front, and on the back you get a couple product shots, and you do get an incredibly tiny font that gives his bio and then his tech specs down there. And then you get his instruction booklet. So this is Fans Toys 52 Aussie, or is it Outrider? Outrider is Fans Toys' take on Trailbreakers. So I'm assuming that's some kind of a typo. Everything else is as it should be in the booklet though, so that's good. On the back of the booklet, you do have that QR code that you can scan if you want to see the video instructions for transformation as well. All right, so that leaves us with the three accessories that we see here, and we're going to start right over here with that face. So this is the face that he comes with out of the box, and then this is his alternate face, so he's very happy. I'm assuming something really, really nice happened to him, and I really like this pearlescent white that they've chosen for the face, and this silver for the sunglasses, the visor. Looks really nice. On the back, you can see it's pretty straightforward. There's really no magic to change in the face. You grab that face, you rip it off, and you press fit this face on. So that's really all there is to it. But hey, you know, if you want him to be super happy, there you go. All right, then we're going to come over here. This is his primary weapon. This is his rifle. So this looks really good. It's a nice feeling, nice looking matte black with some, I don't know, I guess it's got a little bit of sparkle to it maybe. But it looks really good. It feels really good in the hand. And then it does convert. Again, nothing really fancy here. You just push this down, and then you get a little bit of a peg right there that you can use in vehicle mode. So looks great on his vehicle mode. And I really like what they've done here with the way they've configured this. I want all Masterpiece figures to adopt the slot system that he uses to hold his gun. It's so much better than that slot in the palm thing that we have with a lot of the Masterpiece figures. All right, so that brings us to our final accessory. As I understand it, to the best of my knowledge here, this is not an accessory for Aussie, aka Outback. This is actually an accessory for their Megatron. This is the fusion cannon. So let's go ahead and bring it in, and we won't waste any time here. We'll show the main feature. It does take batteries, and you can push that button and you get a nice purple glow. Now it doesn't maintain it, so as soon as you let go of the button it turns off, but you do have that ability, and the batteries just go up underneath here. So really good looking piece. Just not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it here except just have him hold it like a bazooka. So again, you've got that matte black, looks good. You do have that red right up there, and then that's your power button. Under here is where you slide this off to get to the battery compartment. So there you go. All right, so that does it for the accessories. So what we'll do is we will bring Aussie in now for his close-up and take a look at his details. Well, here he is. This is the Fans Toys Aussie, and I figured before I got my hands in the way, I would just throw him on the turntable so we could get a nice 360-degree view of this guy and soak up all of those details and just that overall look of the figure. And you can see, really from every angle, in the spot mode, he looks really well done. I mean, there's obviously no hollow areas. Everything comes together looking really good. I think that this is a nice homage to that G1 mini-bot of Outback. And what they've done here is really admirable. Purely from an aesthetics standpoint, this guy looks good. There's no arguing that whatsoever. So now that we've given you that 360 view, I'm going to get this turntable out of the way and then we'll get some close-ups on this guy. But I just wanted to do this so you could have that overall unobstructed view of the figure. Now that we have that turntable out of the way, let's go ahead and bring Aussie in for his close-up. And we'll start with that face sculpt. Now, we did see the happy face sculpt earlier. This is his standard issue face, the one that he comes with out of the box. And I think it looks good. It's kind of basic, but it works. And much like the other one, and even on his arms here, I really like that pearlescent white paint that they're using. And coming down to the chest, very G1-esque in the fact that it's not overloaded with sculpt work, but what sculpt work it has, I think, is done really well. And you've got these nice buttons right there in the middle coming down to that waist and crotch area. This all looks good, and again is a nice callback to that G1 figure. And then coming down here to those legs, I'm going to turn them outward first so you can see a little bit of what's going on there. So it all comes together. It looks really good. And then coming on down, he does have big old toes. And coming over here to the side, he did pass quality control, and I can verify that the quality on this figure is very high. And then coming up, everything looks good. Even the backpack, really from the side, it compacts up really well. So it doesn't look out of place at all, and it certainly doesn't look awkward. It does hinder his articulation, unfortunately, but we'll get to that here shortly. But looking up under here, everything comes together. He's nice and solid all the way through, no hollow areas. There's up under the arms. And then this side of the arms. I like the two-tone action that they've got going on here. It's almost like a tan. And then there's those hands. Look pretty good. And coming around here to the back. So even from the back, I think he comes together pretty good. That backpack's really not that bad at all. And he just looks good back here. I mean, there's not a bad angle on this guy at all in his bot mode. So great presence in bot mode and in alt mode for that matter. All right, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into that articulation. This is where he suffers. So unfortunately, articulation is one of the areas where this figure really does fall short. It's kind of disappointing, but let's go ahead and get into it. And we'll start up here at the head. You just simply don't get a lot at the head. I mean, we'll start right here. If you want to call this articulation, you can move this around, change that if you want to, but that doesn't really do anything for the head itself. Now, the head is inset in this assembly, but as far as I can tell, it does not move separately. It doesn't do anything in there on its own. The only thing that you have really is the ability to just take that face off. So really what you're stuck with is some side-to-side movement. You're not going to get anything up, nothing down, nothing as far as those quizzical looks go. And even the side-to-side is going to be severely limited because if you're not hitting the backpack, you're actually hitting these shoulder assemblies right here. Sorry for hitting the camera. So you're going to be able to go that far to the left, that far to the right. So you are severely limited in what you can do with that head. So that's kind of disappointing. Moving on to the arms. The arms have a pretty good range of motion. So at those shoulders, you can come up that far, and then you can go all the way around if you choose to do so. And down here, you have bicep rotation, so you can go all the way around with that bicep rotation. Elbow bend, you can get right at 90 degrees. And then down here at the wrist, you do get wrist rotation, and then the fingers, all four fingers work together in one motion at one knuckle to open that far, and then to close in the fist. The thumb does not move. So I would have liked to have seen, you know, if they could have given us individually articulated fingers, great. or at the very least, just that individually articulated index finger, and then the other 3 connected. That would have been nice. All right, so moving on down to the waist, you do not get an ab crunch at all. And then the waist rotation that you get is minimal. It's there. So, I mean, technically it qualifies as waist rotation, but you can get a few degrees left and a few degrees right. And really that is stopped because you're running the legs into the backpack. So turning that way, that's kind of what you're stuck with. And now moving on down here to the hips, these are frustrating. So you've got a couple of different configurations here. So I'm trying to give you the best view possible. You have a double hinge. So this is used for transformation, this double hinge right here. So you have really good range of motion as far as the splits go. I mean, you can get pretty crazy with this guy, so you can go full Van Damme, and that's good news. However, moving forward and back, you're not going to get a lot because he just simply starts running into everything. So he's running, even kicking forward, he's running into stuff right there. Even if you took advantage of that double hinge, you would have to move the legs that far down, and then you could lift this up, and then you could get a forward kick like that. But that's just a whole lot of stuff that you have to move to get where you want to be. And then back kick is a similar thing. If you have these legs where they're supposed to be, you're not going to move them back at all. So you have to break that double hinge out a little bit, and then you can kick those back a little bit there. So, I should say, let me say, I don't know if, let me put them back. I don't know if this is the proper configuration, or if you do want them spread out a little bit like this. So it doesn't detract from the look, and he can support it. So maybe if you had them like that, you could get a little bit more range of motion. But just the way these work is incredibly frustrating. And I still don't feel like having them out on that double hinge like this is the right configuration. So it's kind of a bummer the way these hips work. I feel like you're severely limited in those hips. You do get thigh rotation, so you can take that all the way around if you choose to do so. And then down here at the knees, I will kick this forward a little bit. Down here at the knees, you do get over 90 degrees of knee bend on that joint. So that's a good range of motion there. And then coming down to the feet, you do get ankle tilt of about that much. And then you do have the ability, if you need to rotate this toe around a little bit, you can do that as well. So you're only going to rotate the toe one direction. So you're not going to, whoops, disassembling him here. So you're not going to be able to rotate the toe out this way, only this direction. All right. But you do have a very nice heel spur back here, which helps a lot. There's not much to this, but it is incredibly helpful, just the way that he sits. So when you've got him like this, I'm going to put his legs back up. When you've got him like that, he has a tendency sometimes to get a little top heavy. But if you take this little heel spur and you knock those down right there, that gives him enough of a forward lean that it shifts all that mass just to a different center of gravity, and it makes it a lot easier to balance this guy. So definitely do take advantage of these. They're not very big, but they are incredibly helpful. All right. So that is it as far as the articulation goes. I think he suffers in some areas. I think they could have done a better job. So that's kind of disappointing. But the overall shelf presence of this guy, no doubt about it, is really well done. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to the accessories section. I'm not going to make a separate segment for this because there's simply not a lot to talk about here. So he does have those two accessories. He has that larger one, which is actually intended for Megatron. It's that fusion cannon. But then he also has his smaller main rifle. I love the way that they hold the gun. I think all the Masterpiece figures, no matter who makes them, should take advantage of this. So they have this dovetail slot right there in the hands. So instead of having that old school, the slot in the palm in this area, they actually have this dovetail design between the palm and the thumb that matches up with that dovetail design there. And you just simply take that gun and you slide it in. That's not going anywhere. That is such a cool design. I really like what they've done here. He's not going to drop it. He's not going to do anything with it. He's got it. He's just got it. So that's great. And then of course you can close those fingers up on it to give it that closed fist look. So I think very well done there. Now, as far as weapon storage in bot mode goes, you can do weapon storage back here, and it would be just like what you would do for the vehicle mode. So you flip the handle down, and then you've got a little bit of a peg there that goes into a slot, and you can put it like that, or you can put it like this. Totally up to you. But you do have some built-in weapon storage. Now, as far as this thing goes, there's really not a lot you can do with it, and there's really nothing spelled out specifically in the instructions that you could do, except for this weird bazooka mode that you see on the back of the box where their version of Brawn is holding it. So you just have this little handle right here that spins around 360 degrees, and you can put this handle, it's not slotted like the rifle is, which is unfortunate, but you can take this handle, and if you configure his arm correctly here, if you lift this up and then turn, but you can do something like that where you can have that bazooka kind of style where he's holding it like that. So that's totally up to you. I mean, I may have knocked my batteries loose. I don't know. Are they loose? Nope, they're still good. So yeah, you can do that if you want. But that's really it as far as the accessories go. The only other thing is going to be popping that face off. And I'm not going to waste my time in the review doing it, because you literally just pull the face off and you replace it with the other face. So there's nothing to it whatsoever. So that is it as far as details, the articulation, and the accessories go. So what we'll do is we will get into transformation. We'll put this guy into his fantastic looking alt mode, and we'll move forward from there. So here he is in his alt mode, and he looks really good. I like what they've done here. There's a few little things on here that I guess I could have wished for, but this overall look, he looks proportional, he looks to scale, and still somehow just absolutely pulls off that G1 look of that mini-bot for the original Outback. So we'll talk about it, little things here and there. You've got that W right on the top, and then of course that front grille looks really good. You've got the clear headlights, and you've got the clear lights up here. You've got the mirrors sticking out, and on the other side of the mirror they do have just that somewhat reflective chrome to give it that illusion of the mirror. I would have liked to have seen some more paint applications on the back, so the jerry can and then the tail lights back here, if they could have done those up in, you know, the red or orange or something like that, it would have added to it. But you've got your door handles here, rubber tires, the wheels look really good. Really very little to complain about in this alt mode. I really like what they've done here. It's just a good looking alt mode. He's just the density of this figure, I guess, is the best way to describe it. When you pick him up, particularly in this alt mode, he's just solid as a rock. And there's really no robot kibble here, so let's go ahead and take him off of there and we'll talk about that for a minute. If we look at the underside, unless you really know what you're looking for, you're not going to see any kibble. I mean, this could be mistaken for a skid plate since this is an off-road vehicle. And then even back here, they have this cover that they didn't need to put on. It wasn't necessary for the transformation, but it covers that back area up, which I'm all kinds of happy about. So yeah, they've done a really good job here. You know, you've got this spare tire, if you will, up top. This is where you can put his weapon on, and we'll see that here shortly when we bring the accessories out. But yeah, it looks good all the way around. There's not an incredible amount of detail, but everything it has on there just works. And then that smoky translucent plastic that they used for those windows there, it all looks really good. It all works. You've got this the luggage rack up here. So yeah, no doubt about it, this guy looks fantastic. So what we'll do is we'll get the turntable out of the way. We'll bring his weapon in and talk about that really briefly, and then we'll get into those accessories. We'll get into those comparisons, and we'll see how he looks against some other vehicles out there. As far as accessories go in his alt mode, there's really not a lot to talk about here. Really, the only thing you can do is use his primary weapon. So let's go ahead and bring that in. So this is his rifle, we're all familiar with. What you can do with this is mount it up here on that spare tire. So you've got that port right there, and then if you take this handle and bring that handle down, then you've got a little bit of a peg there. Now this is kind of shallow, a little more shallow than I was expecting. However, it does hold very snugly, and it has such a good feel. This is I wish this was almost like an ASMR level kind of thing here, but it really does feel good. So you just take it and snug that in, and that thing is sitting nice and tight, so you can hear that, and it is nice and tight in there. It's not going anywhere. So you can flip him upside down, and it takes a lot to make that come out. It's not going anywhere until you are ready for it to come out. So I think that's very well done, especially for such a shallow peg. But yeah, once you put that on, he looks pretty darn good. I have to admit, there's no doubt about it. He became a very well done armored vehicle, and you do have the ability if you want to turn it. So he's parked and you know, doing something like that. You absolutely can do that. And I don't know if it's by design. I don't think it is, but you do get a little bit of up and down here, and he will hold it. So you can get a little bit of down, and you can get a little bit of up. So if you want to change that angle a little bit, you are free to do so. Something like that. Now, I would like to say that I would like to have the ability to do something with this here. You know, if they had given you the ability to slide the big one on, you know, or if you took this out, if there was a way to mount the big one. I know that it's not for Aussie. I know that it's meant for their Megatron. But, man, that would have been cool if you could have had the big boomer on there. Even side mounting, something like that would have been pretty cool. But you can't really use this, so sorry guys. But this, I think, is a fine substitute, or not a fine substitute, it's actually just a fine weapon to use in alt mode. And really, what more could you possibly want at this point? he just looks darn good. All right, so now that we've talked about that accessory, probably more than we needed to, now we'll go ahead and we'll get into those comparisons. For our first alt mode comparison, this is the Transformers Prime Autobot Cup, representing the Transformers War for Cybertron line. This is Siege Autobot Hound. Moving on to our next comparison, this is the Studio Series Bone Crusher. For a fellow Fans Toys comparison, this is the Fans Toys Outrider. This is their take on Trailbreaker. And you can see, I think they scale up pretty well to each other. I think maybe Aussie should be, I don't know, a little bit bigger, but he is technically a mini-bot, so I'm okay with the scale. I think it works. And for that final alt mode comparison, of course, we have to bring in the G1 Outback, so you can see just how well Fans Toys has adapted this little G1 guy into this masterpiece, if you will. I mean, the colors, so many of the design cues, everything. Really, the only major difference, other than the very obvious, of course, is the W is black on the G1, and it's just that brown on the Fans Toys. But let's go ahead and get a few different views here, because I do want to spend a little bit of time just admiring the work that they've done. I'm just blown away by it. So let's go ahead and see both of those guys from the front, so you can get a good view there. And yeah, I mean, it's all there. You know, really the only thing that's missing is you've got lights on the fenders on the G1, and they don't have the lights over here on the Fans Toys. And then coming around to that 3/4 view in the back, you know, you have the jerry can, you've got that back window, although it's not painted, you do have that back window back there, and all those design cues are there. You've got the luggage rack, very, very well done. And then coming around, we'll do the back to back, so you can see these guys side by side and see just that overall shape that they have there, that they've brought over from him, and they just look good. I'm so impressed with what Fans Toys has done here to adapt that G1 Minibot look to this masterpiece level figure right over here. So, job very well done. All right, that's going to do it for the alt mode comparisons. Let's get Aussie transformed back into his bot mode, and we'll take a look at some comparisons there. For our first bot mode comparison, on the left, of course, is that Fans Toys Aussie. On the right is the Transformers Prime Autobot Cup. Our next comparison comes to us from the War for Cybertron line. This is the Siege Autobot Hound. Representing the Transformers Studio Series, this is another tan desert truck. This is a Bone Crusher. For a fellow Fans Toys figures comparison, this is Outrider, aka Trailbreaker. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty impressed by the fact that they're similarly sized in their alt mode, but Trailbreaker, aka Outrider, just absolutely grows in his bot mode. So I think they've done a good job here of capturing that mini bot look with Aussie. And for that final bot mode comparison, here we see Aussie next to his inspiration. This is the original G1 Outback mini bot. And like I said, you can see just how many design choices Fans Toys made here to really provide an homage to the original toy there. I think they've done a really cool job here. Everything from, you know, this entire midsection, really, on both of them. Wow, what a copy and paste job with modern technology and engineering. Just very well done. And let's go ahead and move them here and just kind of give you that heads-on view. And yes, for those of you with the eagle eyes, I did try to, when I was a kid, I did try to give Outback blue eyes using I believe it was probably a Bic pen. I did that to quite a few of my mini bots. As you can see, it didn't hold up over time, but it is what it is. But even the sticker placement, you know, you can see the sticker here, and then you can see what they've done here with the paint, and the same thing on the chest. Really, really cool job of bringing a lot of those design elements over. Obviously, the legs are completely different, and I'm quite all right with that. But even from the side here, you can see the little arm wings have been brought over. And essentially, the backpack has stayed the same. So bringing them around to the back there, just really cool to see this as well. So yeah, they look fairly similar from the back. I think that's a job well done. All right, so there you go. Get these guys repositioned. There he is next to his original inspiration. All right, that's it for comparisons. So let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. All right, so there we have the FT-52 Fans Toys Aussie. And this figure is two sides of the same coin. I mean, you've got some really high highs and you have some pretty low lows with this figure. But let's go ahead and dive into it a little bit, and we're going to start with one of those highs for sure, and that's the aesthetics, the overall look to this guy. He looks good. I mean, this is a wonderful looking figure. Bot mode looks great, but I absolutely adore that alt mode. He just looks almost perfect in the alt mode. If you didn't know it was a Transformer, you would just think it was almost a model vehicle. It just looks that good. So credit where it's due and praise where it's due. He looks great in that alt mode. Don't get me wrong, his bot mode looks great too. To bring all those design elements over from a G1 figure and to put them into a masterpiece scaled figure, I think they've really hit the nail on the head here. I have very little to complain about. Really, if I was going to pick on anything, it would just be I would have liked to have seen a few more paint applications in that alt mode. You know, maybe some red for the tail lights, that kind of stuff. But very little to complain about here. He just looks good in both of his modes, and arguably one of the better shelf presences that I've seen out of a figure in a long time. So he's almost perfect, but I am going to give him a 10 out of 10 for aesthetics. Now, moving on to one of the low spots, and this is probably the lowest of the lows that he's going to have, is articulation. Man, this guy there's so many almosts or if-onlys when it comes to the articulation here. He has severely limited head articulation. You're not going to get any up and down. You're not going to get any quizzical looks. You're going to get just a few degrees of left and right. And, man, if only he could have turned his head a little bit more, it would have made all the difference. Those hands, I get it. He's supposed to be a slightly smaller figure in Minibot, but maybe if you could have given us individually articulated fingers, or at the very least an index finger that is separate from the other three, that would have been nice. He sort of has a waist rotation. If only he had a few more degrees of waist rotation, you could actually tell that he had it. He does not have an ab crunch, and I think for the price point, that's a little bit of a disappointment. And his hips, man, oh gosh, so much work you have to do with these hips to try to get a pose. He has very, very limited forward and back hip movement, and what you have to do essentially is spread those legs out of that double hinge to get that forward and back movement. If you just have them in their proper orientation, he's going to stand like a statue, and that's just genuinely a bummer for me. Moving on down, the knees and the thigh rotation, all that is great. Getting down to the feet, they do the job. He has a few degrees of ankle tilt, which is nice, and you can rotate that toe, but you can't move that toe up or down. Really, the saving grace here are those heel spurs. The fact that he's got the ability, or that you've got the ability to move those heel spurs a little bit to help him with balance really makes all the difference. So they're very helpful. But overall, the articulation here really suffers. I'm only going to give him a 6 out of 10 on articulation. I think that he's just full of missed opportunities there. Moving on to accessories. I don't really know what to say here. He comes with his rifle, he comes with an additional face, and then he comes with the big fusion cannon for Megatron. Great. They're very well done. I just don't feel like you get a lot for the price point here, in particular for this figure himself. I mean, what you see is what you get, essentially. And I think for that price point, that's a little bit disappointing. The accessories are high quality, very well done. There's just not much. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 on accessories. I think they kind of missed the spot there as well. Moving on to quality. This is his other high point, no doubt about it. Quality is near perfect on this figure. I wouldn't have expected anything less from Fans Toys, but it's always good to hear that and to know that that really is the case. I don't have any paint application issues here. The molded components are all done properly. The die-cast components are all done properly. Everything transforms as it should. Everything feels nice and solid and clicks and tabs and does all the things that you wanted a figure to do. You could almost make an ASMR video out of the sounds that this guy makes when you transform him and move him and put his gun in his little spare tire on the roof when he's in alt mode. So quality is absolutely on point. I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. Moving on to value. This is another one. It's always the most subjective one. But frankly, I don't know how much of the value is here for the price point. He looks so good, but he left me wanting more. And I don't know what that more is, but he just left me wanting more. I do know one of the mores is articulation. Good grief, he could have benefited from a lot more articulation. But for the price point, I don't know if the value's there. So I picked this guy up from BigBadToyStore.com for $119 US. I think that that's for Fans Toys, for most of these third-party figures. I think that's probably right on par with what the MSRP should be for them. But I just feel like we should have gotten more with Aussie. I just don't know what that is. So for overall value, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. So that brings us to a grand total out of a possible 50 points. The Fans Toys Aussie gets 40 out of 50, which puts him at 80%. Now, I am going to recommend this figure because I do think that the good outweighs the bad here. Just buyer beware. Know what you're getting into. You're going to miss so much as far as articulation goes, and you're going to be a little disappointed with those accessories. But the overall look of this guy, transforming him, everything, it's smooth, it works, it feels good. He feels good in the hand. So I think once you have this guy in your collection, you're not going to regret it. Just know what you're getting into when you purchase him. So with that, that's going to wrap up the review. I hope you guys got some good information. I hope you found this entertaining and informative. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, and feel free to leave some comments. Let us know what you think about Aussie or anything else going on in the world. So until we see you guys in the next review, take care.